I want to just start off today by saying that today's conversation and this recurring conversation is really about government transparency and directly getting information to media outlets and citizens where they can consume information and where we can participate in a dialogue, which is something that I think is missing from most local governments, real dialogue. And it's something that we want to lead the way on as much as possible. When it comes to infrastructure and economic growth and development and the growth our city's experiencing, I think we do a pretty good job of talking with the public about that and having good conversations about that. And I'm not sure we've always done such a good job as a city or a government agency with that on other fronts. But we believe that our charge as public servants is not just to keep citizens safe, but also to ensure that the public is informed and people know what's going on in their community. So we're constantly self-evaluating to determine areas in which we can improve. And the fact that we're all here today and that you're seeing us live on Facebook Live and on Periscope is a direct result of that self-evaluation. Where we can do better than we have in the past is in following up with citizens after issues and after an initial incident may occur. In fact, in many cases, when there's an arrest and cases are sent forward to prosecution, when we're talking about criminal issues, quite often that information doesn't make its way all the way to the citizens who are interested and affected. And we're working to improve that. As we strive to become and be the most efficient, effective, and responsive municipal government in the country, that's a critical issue for us. Additionally, we're opening the floor to public dialogue and comment via Facebook Live and Periscope. It used to be that transparency meant being responsive to formal public requests for information and reporting the actions of an agency in some manner where the public could get to it or access it. But today, citizens can interact with their elected officials and local governments and public safety agencies via tweet. Social media allows for dialogue, and it's not always used that way. Information used to move in only one direction, but we have the ability to allow it to move back and forth. And so it's our intention to make citizens' access to our agencies in the city of Salisbury as interactive as possible. So today we invite our citizens to have your questions and concerns addressed live and instantaneously as we have this conversation. I have a number of people in the room who are experts with me. I have Chief Duncan, I have Chief Hoppus, I have Andy Kitzrow and Allison Pulcher, Nancy Talbot, Chris Damone, and Julia Glanz from the Mayor's Office, and Tom Stevenson from Field Operations, who are able to answer some questions that you have. And I'm going to start just by saying that one of the things we didn't expect to talk about today was, but that is obviously a public safety issue and incident, is the storm we experienced yesterday, the tornado we experienced yesterday. So what I'm going to do briefly is talk about what we experienced and what we're seeing and what's happening. And then I'm going to ensure that I've covered everything. And if I haven't, I'm going to ask Chief Hoppus and Mr. Stevenson to address additional issues. And they'll stand by for questions as well at the end. So we had a significant storm event yesterday afternoon. It seems as if it's a tornado, but that's not confirmed. That will be confirmed by the National Weather Service, who I believe is on ground with the Wicomico County Emergency Management Director, David Shipley, today and this morning. They're doing a determination based on the damage that they see to trees, power lines, etc., as to whether or not it was in fact a tornado. We responded to calls for emergency services, medical and fire support. Chief Hoppus's team responded to calls all over the city, from Dogwood Drive to Locust to the hospital to Princeton Homes neighborhood. So we were all over the city responding to emergencies, down power lines, flipped cars, and then some potential smoke coming out of the Hoppers 1400 South complex, although I think everything's resolved there. Power was turned off and all issues are back to normal. What we experienced was basically a straight line path of a storm that touched down over the course of about 1.5 miles from Princeton Homes neighborhood to the Dogwood Drive Route 13 intersection, right by, again, between Hoppers and Cheers. Hoppers complex experienced significant damage in terms of the roof, an apparatus on the roof. I think it was an air handling unit that was blown off and into the parking lot. Several cars in that parking lot, and there's video footage of this that's making its way on social media, that were blown over and actually picked up and landed on top of other cars and upside down. A building, a vacant commercial building behind the Hoppers building was damaged, so much so that part of the roof collapsed and a wall, I believe, collapsed. Is that right, Chief? Yeah. Over in the Princeton Homes neighborhood, well, between the two are the SU athletic fields. It seems that there's some trees down there, maybe a little fencing damaged, but nothing too significant. And I think the fact that it crossed those athletic fields actually saved us from even worse injuries or damage. And then in the Princeton Homes neighborhood, we have a number of issues, power lines down. However, that being said, power lines being down, power's been restored to virtually all homes. There are 2 homes with power still off. There are 2 condemned properties. On 111 East College Avenue, a porch was torn off, and there's some roof damage. Tree damage to 1020 Margaret Street, 302 Princeton Avenue. 2 homes on Roger Street where some siding was blown off and roof was damaged, and a fence was damaged on South Division Street. But there are, again, 2 condemned homes, one on College Avenue, one on Princeton Avenue, where a tree fell through the roof and actually through the second floor and into the kitchen ceiling of the first floor, and a few other damaged fences. That being said, again, 2 condemned buildings in the city. The one commercial building, or 2 condemned homes in the city, the one commercial building south of the city border experiencing significant damage. Really, we're all blessed and we're all lucky that it wasn't worse. After emergency crews responded, our field operations team, led by Mr. Stevenson, went out and began the cleanup process. We tried to photo document as much as possible for the National Weather Service what happened, but field operations team did too good a job in cleaning up. I was out there this morning, and there is no evidence on the street that there was ever a storm. On private property, it's a different story. I know that we assisted residents who were willing to drag limbs out into the street. We took those and we chopped them up and put them through the wood chipper and hauled that away. I want to thank the County Executive Culver, who provided us with 2 40-foot roll-off dumpsters. They placed those on, I believe, Roger Street and Princeton Avenue, and residents are free to use those. We're using them. I think we deployed a front-end loader that started lifting some of those materials into the dumpsters last night. We ran street sweepers all evening. How late did your crews work, Tom?
9 o'clock.
Till 9 o'clock. So crews are working late into the evening to get the streets cleared. What you'll find over there, if you look closely in the neighborhoods, is you see less tree cover. Honestly, there are a lot of high-level limbs that are down. You are seeing some very large trees on top of some cars. So there's some damage to cars. That's pretty significant. A couple cars that are significantly damaged. And there will be some cleanup that goes on today. I know several of the tree companies were out there already, and I'm sure they'll be returning today. Landlords have been out there surveying property damage. I want to thank, I don't know who they are, but I want to thank the 2 landlords who, their tenants were in condemned properties, moved those individuals and those families with kids into other houses, and just want to say how grateful I am for that. I want to thank the Red Cross as well for being out there. And then just mention that Delegate Anderton, Senator Mathias, Delegate Adams, Delegate Carozza were all in contact and out there. Again, our county executive was out there with us. Councilwoman Jackson, Council Vice President Boda, and the governor and Senators Cardin and Van Hollen were quick to respond. Just want to say how grateful I am to all of them. I don't know if there are any questions about the storm right now that we can address. Yes.
Would today probably be the last day for cleanup, or you think maybe tomorrow, or how are we seeing it?
That's a good question. Tom, I'm going to lean on you for an answer there.
Field operations will complete its work today. We're basically trying to clear the public right-of-way from back of the sidewalk to back of the sidewalk. The ongoing cleanup will continue throughout the week, and then we'll start doing ball pickup on Monday. I've got a press release over to Mr. Gamone for approval, so we can get that out.
So that bulk pickup in the Princeton Homes in the affected neighborhood will be free. We won't be charging for bulk for bulk pickup. So we'll come through. I've seen shutters blown off, pieces of roofing blown off, siding blown off. So undoubtedly, people are going to have more stuff than they usually do. So we're happy to provide that service. Other questions?
Last
Yeah,
one.
you're fine.
I don't know when the last time Salisbury probably saw a tornado, if we've even seen one. But what's the protocol during that time? I mean, I'm sure it's something that we're not used to. So what's kind of the first thing we need to do during that time?
So being 35 years old, born and raised here, I don't remember a storm in the last 35 years with a confirmed tornado. In the 90s, there was a microburst that hit the Camden neighborhood, affected a few trees, but that was relatively insignificant when you put it in the context of the storm that we saw in cars getting lifted off the ground yesterday. That being said, the protocol is we were already on a heightened alert. Field operations, police, fire were all already watching the storm because we had a flash flood warning ongoing from the morning on. Our National Weather Service alarms didn't go off. We did have, within about 5 minutes of the storm, I saw on my phone, I saw that a severe thunderstorm warning went out. But then it wasn't until I received a phone call from Chief Hoppus notifying me that there were 911 calls coming in that we confirmed that we had a suspected tornado touching down. So the protocol in terms of preparation is, business as usual. We're fully staffed 24/7, ready to go. Field operations was out there ready to block off streets for high water. That was already happening. So we were under a heightened state of awareness and alert as it was. I think that helped with the cleanup process. I don't know if additional staffing was brought on in advance of that, Tom, or Rick?
No, we had normal staffing, but we had been working in advance of the pending weather to prepare cleaning streets, storm drains, and things like that.
Okay. And Chief Hoppus, I know you brought in extra staff after or once the 911 calls were coming in. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And was that a 100% call in?
Yeah, we made a call out to all off-duty career and volunteer members and had a sizable turnout for those personnel.
Okay. And just my own visibility on the street was at Dogwood Drive there was a full crew of volunteers. At Princeton Homes there was a full crew of paid. I mean, the combination department was out there in force, and we were obviously proud to see that. I should mention that immediately after getting the phone call from Chief Hoppus, we did stand up a City Emergency Operations Center at Fire Headquarters at Station 16, and staff moved into and began staffing that. I believe Assistant Chief Gladwell was manning that for the department. Is that correct, Chief?
He and I.
He and you. Meanwhile, crews were running around town, both from police, fire, and field operations to respond to the issues that arose. And staff from the mayor's office and each department, field operations was well represented, as well as the police department in that room. And the Department of Emergency Services, again, from Wicomico County, was in the room at the same time. Anything else on the storm? Okay. Then what I want to do next is introduce our beloved police chief, Chief Duncan, who is going to take us through sort of what this process is going to look like, I think, on a weekly basis, which is, the professionals who are providing us with a safe community are going to talk about what's happening, what they're seeing, what the challenges are, what the issues are, and what they want citizens to keep their eyes out for. In helping us ensure that we have a safe community. Chief Duncan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Prior to working through yesterday's storm, and I can't stress enough, how important it was that all of these different entities came together, whether it was county, state, or local. I had received calls from my colleagues in the other agencies. We were all coordinated very, very well to make sure that our public was best served, and I think that bears mentioning. Also, I have to add to the mayor's comment about the speed at which our fire department and our team from Public Works responded, arrived on scenes, and immediately began clearing the way to get back to normal operations. It really was quite incredible for those of you who were not witnessing it firsthand. On to the matter at hand. So with these interactive briefings, what we hope to do is highlight or underscore a lot of the good work that's happening here in the city, and with our partners as well. You can anticipate a standard time for these types of interactive briefings to take place. So we've designated Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Moving on to the future, whether it's me or another member of the team here at Salisbury Police Department, we will be here to greet you online via Facebook or Periscope, and we can take your questions as they come forward. So bear with us during this first event, and then we hope to provide a better product for you moving forward. We had decided that the best thing to discuss would be this uptick in violent crime that we've seen recently since the beginning of June. So we're going to start this interactive briefing as it relates to the police department based on our homicides that we've experienced here in the city. To date, what we have is a total of 6 homicides. On June 10th, we experienced our first one for the year at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning. 57-year-old Anthony Cropper was visiting a friend's house in the 1100 block of Middle Neck Road. And he went to answer a knock at the door, was engaged in some type of a verbal altercation, and he was subsequently killed. We have, in conjunction with Maryland State Police Homicide and our Salisbury Police Department Criminal Investigation Division detectives, along with a host of other agencies and other units within those agencies, successfully arrested 3 individuals. On June 10th, we were able to arrest Ryan Holden, who's 20 years old. On June 16th, we were able to arrest Cortland Costin and John Schoolfield. Costin is 18, Schoolfield is 17 years old. All of them have been charged as adults with the homicide of Mr. Cropper. Approximately 40 minutes later, what we would learn to be was completely unrelated. We had our second homicide for the year at approximately 1:40 in the morning on June 10th. 20-year-old Jaquanta Walton was killed while within the was also headed by the Maryland State Police Homicide Unit, and we played a support role. We linked up with our MSP partners, and that investigation remains open. I would ask that if the public has any information, that they please call Crime Solvers at 410-548-1776. You can remain anonymous through Crime Solvers, or you can go to our website, submit an anonymous tip, or you can go to crimereports.com. Crimereports.com will also take an anonymous tip from you. Crimereports.com is something that agencies across the country are using in an effort to engage their community. So you could pull up our calls for service right through crimereports.com, and you could also set up an alert via email for your specific neighborhood if you wish to do so. Crimereports.com drafts right from our calls for service, so you could pull that up anytime from your smartphone device or from your computer. In our next homicide, we have, which occurred on July 9th, we actually had 2 individuals who were involved, 27-year-old Mike Ward and 21-year-old Jaquan Griffin. This event occurred in 400 Pumpkin Court, which is Denny's. We had an off-duty state trooper who was involved in an overtime assignment there at Denny's. Discover what he believed was a large crowd. Shots were being fired. It is believed between Ward and Griffin, and the trooper interceded and was involved himself in a police-involved shooting. That, of course, is being conducted, that investigation is being conducted by Maryland State Police. And when the trooper left the Denny's, he engaged one of the individuals, Mike Ward, and after being shot at by Mr. Ward, the trooper then discharged his firearm for his own protection back at Ward. The next event that we have is July 29th at approximately 11:30 in the morning. 11:30 in the morning, and sorry, I'm getting cues that I'm not speaking loud enough, so I'm going to try to project a little bit more. July 29th, 11:30 in the morning, Mr. Taven Malak, 32-year-old, who was killed while in the 400 block of Bethel Street. This individual was actually succumbed to injuries sustained after he was stabbed. There was a confrontation between Mr. Malak and what we would come to learn would be seven separate individuals. On August 1st of this year, the combined team of Maryland State Police Homicide and Salisbury Police Department Criminal Investigation Division arrested two individuals, 39-year-old Brandy Upshur and 23-year-old Janiqua Winder. Later that day and into the morning of August 2nd, we had four more individuals in custody, 23-year-old Hammond Taylor, 24-year-old Edward Winder, 34-year-old Eddie Smith, and 27-year-old Raymond Murray. And then on August 3rd, 21-year-old Brandon Yarns was arrested down in Horntown, Virginia. Tragically, our sixth homicide, which you do not have information on yet, which we're putting out right now, occurred on August 2nd. And unfortunately, we have a 4-month-old victim involved in this homicide. 4-month-old Shamari Sargent was transported to PRMC, suffering from what we would later learn after autopsy was blunt force trauma. This occurred while in a residence within the 400 block of Alabama Avenue. And detectives, Salisbury Police Department detectives who are assigned to our Child Advocacy Center conducted this investigation. And through interviews and review of the autopsy, we have charged 17-year-old, stand by for just a moment, Destiny Sargent, who is the biological mother of 4-month-old Shamari. So that is a lot of violent crime in a very short period of time, which is not something that we have experienced here in many years, actually, here in the city of Salisbury. At least, or let me say this, the two most recent homicides, certainly by no stretch of the imagination was there any ongoing threat to the community, as tragic as they both were. Certainly with the other 4 homicides, I can firmly say the same, that there was no ongoing threat to our community here in the city of Salisbury. And in direct response to after the July 9th event at Denny's, we had already internally begun to reconstitute our Safe Streets team. So if you recall, Safe Streets is funded out of the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. And we had been in a position to restaff that prior to the July events. Their focus, however, after the July 9th event began to shift. So what we would be concentrating on with our Safe Streets team would be neighborhood complaints. We'd be concentrating on lower level vice occurring in and around our city. And then we simply shifted into a more higher gear in order to address the gun violence here in the city of Salisbury, Maryland. So our Safe Streets team is now partnered directly with the Maryland State Police Gang Unit, and we are working more of a focus on gun crimes and crimes of violence here in the city. That's not to say that we won't be addressing any other units within the agency at this time. Unfortunately, we will not be able to have a unit simply, directly, specifically dedicated to neighborhood complaints, as was our goal prior to July, and then moving forward into the rest of the summer. We will still be handling those calls. However, we've certainly reassigned our manpower so that it can be most effective in making sure that we get a hold of, prevent, and then start to work on stopping this violent crime here in our city. So, that being said, are there any questions that I can take for you right now? Just to give you some background on, we were able to pull up some of our gun-related violence here and give you a snapshot over the last couple of years. So far, as of the end of July and the beginning of August, we've had 26 different events that have related, or what we believe to be related to, the use of a firearm. Whether that is a report of shots being fired, whether that is a robbery, an assault, or simple possession, or tragically, in 4 of these cases, an event involving the loss of life via homicide. In 2016, we had 79 of these events involving use of a firearm, and we had, for perspective, we had 51 events tracked by the end of July of 2016. In 2015, we had 84 total events, and by the end of July of 2015, we were tracking 45. This is always our focus. I know there's a lot of discussion about this problem, both locally and even further out. But please know that we are working on it. We're not siloed. We're not working on it by ourselves. We actually have very strong partnerships in place. We are very, very grateful and fortunate to be able to have a robust working relationship with not only our federal partners, but Maryland State Police, Wycomico County Sheriff's Office, Del Mar Police, Fruitland Police, Salisbury University Police, because we're all focused on providing the best service, the most safe environment, and putting an end to this type of violence here in our area.
Chief, a question from Facebook. Are these trends following patterns in larger cities currently?
So, for those that didn't hear the question from Facebook, are these trends following, are these patterns following trends in larger cities? It appears as though they are. However, our focus, what we're doing right now, it's not as though we're not concerned. Certainly we are for our sister cities out there and larger cities that are out there. We are watching, we are learning, we are taking the positives from what are coming out of those other cities, and we're applying them here to get out in front of more of this type of violent crime. The focus is here. It's notable that this is occurring elsewhere, but we're dedicated to working on the problem right here, and we've actually got resources, we've got personnel, we have other technology in place to help us focus here on this question, on this problem.
Chief, from Periscope, someone asks, what is the big concern about dirt bikes?
Well, there is a large concern about dirt bikes, and it is a problem here that we are working on, both inside and outside of our city. And certainly I can address that more fully, I think, maybe in a future interactive session. But they are unsafe. You know, there are many, many people who ride here in our city, in our region. In fact, we host in the region many different motorcycle events. And we've even had riders come here in order to make sure that our families here during the holidays have Christmas. They bring a lot of awareness to riding, and they support our families here by bringing gifts. And that's the type of riding that we really want to support. A lot of different events occur locally and over in Ocean City with motorcycle riding. But what we're seeing here with the dirt bikes is reckless. It's really a large problem here in our city. We have a group of individuals, it's not a large group, but we do have a group of individuals that are believe that they are above following the laws that relate to safety of their fellow citizens here in the city. and they are causing large concern and safety problems here in our city. And we are working on steady resolution so that we can safely bring these individuals into custody. We recently made one arrest. Some of the footage prior to the arrest was in fact captured on Facebook and provided to us by concerned citizens. And we were able to successfully bring one individual into custody, and we still have that ATV that he was riding on. If you are engaging in this activity, I can tell you that we are building cases against you, and there are other places that you can ride. There is private land. There are places outside of the state that you could ride, that you could perfect your craft, and we want to see that done safely, and we want to support that. But what's happening right now in our city is not acceptable, it's illegal, and it's unsafe.
Chief, we have another one from Facebook, and I think you were alluding to this before we took questions. What is the year-over-year crime trend, and how does that compare to the last 10 years?
Well, I can speak to homicide. Let's start with 2016. We had 2 homicides in 16. We had 3 homicides in 2015. None in 14, none in 13, 1 in 2012, and 1 in 2011. We had 7 homicides in 2010, 4 homicides in 2004, 4 homicides in 2008, and 1 in 2007. The 10-year average, we're down prior to June 10th of this year. 10-year average put us down 13%, which is remarkable. So we were really making progress until we had these 4 events that occurred related to gun violence here in the city.
We have another one
Sure.
about dirt bikes. Is there any way to give us, without compromising investigations, sort of the geographical area of where the illegal dirt bikes are the most troublesome?
Absolutely. Right now, our biggest hotspot is kind of in the southeast portion of the city. That's just where the most calls for service come from. Within our city limits, we share a border, of course, with county and state, and of course Delmar and Fruitland. They too are experiencing it. It's not as though these individuals who are engaging in this unsafe and illegal activity stop at the borders. But inside the city, our largest volume of calls for service happens to be in that southeast quadrant. We have noted that just about every sector, every beat that we patrol here inside the city has had a report of these dirt bike riders here in our city. Thank you. Sure. Any other questions?
Rich, come on, join us for a second. The only thing I'd add is just that I want to thank Captain Kaiser and Chief Duncan for their hard work on this. They'll be here every week to answer your questions. I'll be here as I can, but I think it's more important that you hear from the law enforcement professionals, as well as Chief Hoppus and the emergency medical professionals that we have on staff, and Mr. Stevenson from field operations, and Ms. Phillips from Housing Community Development when appropriate, as we address public safety incidents and issues in our community. Again, our hope and our purpose is to answer your questions, to get details of investigations out to you when it's pertinent, and as soon as we can, as quickly as we can, ensure that information in terms of how to be vigilant and how to be aware is in your hands, the citizens' hands, as quickly as possible and as frequently as possible. And then again, that any questions you have are directly answered. That's what we're here for, and we're happy to do it. If there aren't any other questions, I'll just say thank you. But if there are, we'll stay here as long as you want.
Mayor?
Yes.
Who is the gentleman standing next to Chief?
Oh, this
Duncan?
guy's Captain Rich Kaiser. Captain Kaiser is a senior administration official in the police department, and does a variety of things, including commanding our special operations Our CID handles all press inquiries, public information. What else do you do, Rich? Accreditation, which is a huge and ongoing process, constant ongoing process for the Salisbury Police Department. If you haven't noticed, that we are an accredited police agency, a nationally accredited police agency, which is a long and cumbersome process, and the two people at my right can talk more about it than I possibly ever could. They'll forget in 10 seconds, more than I'll ever remember about it. But accreditation is a process where we open the books of absolutely everything about this agency to national review, and we ensure that everything that we do meets and exceeds the national standards. It's not something most police agencies choose to do because it's a cumbersome process, but we believe it's important in terms of building trust in what we do, and it's important to again hold ourselves accountable to those national standards, the highest national standard. Anything you want to add on accreditation, either of you?
No, other than the fact that it takes it's not something that's required by every agency out there, certainly. We are the 45th agency in this country to receive accreditation, and we continue to roll forward. That is another area where you can partner with us. I am not certain that everybody out there that's looking at this has had a chance to participate in our citizen survey or our call-in or our town hall meetings when it comes to accreditation, but you can certainly do that. You just watch for our press releases, and you can participate with us when it comes to reaccreditation, when it comes to having the accreditors here on site and conducting their investigation as to whether or not we continue to meet standards as far as the federal side goes. And again, on these events here of this spike of violence here in our city, in addition to these interactive briefings, which will not always be addressing, fortunately, which will not always be addressing the violent crime issue that we're currently contending with, that we're currently working in partnership with. There is going to be various neighborhood meetings on this. If you'd like to have a neighborhood meeting to get more involved or have more information presented to you that we can discuss, certainly, by all means, reach out, contact us. We'll be more than happy to set that up. We will be setting up several community meetings in relation to some pieces of this violent crime that we're seeing, and you can look for that later either through Twitter or Facebook. The last thing that I would tell you is that because we partner with Maryland State Police Homicide Team on these homicides, the information that was presented to you here was taken from the press releases that are already available for public consumption on the Maryland State Police official website. So you can go there and you can pull those websites yourself. We're careful not to comment on anything that may present a problem for jury pool selection and the eventual trial of these individuals who are presumed innocent until after trial, whatever trial finding occurs, and we move forward from that. So there are a number of things which I really cannot discuss and are better suited for questions that are can be brought to our partners in the state police. All right?
Can I just add one other thing?
Yes.
And just in closing, putting all of this in context and really, acknowledging the hard work that goes into responding to and preparing ourselves for the unexpected and the things that we hope don't happen in our community, but often do. We have obviously been watching trends, in total, crime trends, but crime trends crime is more nuanced than an overall number. So, it's fantastic to see a decreasing number of Part 1 crimes, but it's really troubling to see an increasing or spike in violent crimes or a particular type of violent crime, including homicide, this summer. And it concerns me. It concerns all of us. But what's really incredible, and I want to give credit where credit is due, is where Captain Kaiser and his team, and Chief Duncan's team, the Criminal Investigation Division of SPD, as well as the Maryland State Police Homicide Division, their partnership and the partnership with the county sheriff's office as well. Their partnership in responding to and solving these crimes rapidly and preparing them for prosecution is what helps keep our community safe from people who we know are dangerous. And I just want to say how grateful I am for the good work that you and your people are doing there, as well as our partners at MSP Homicide. It's really incredible. You know, you can't always predict when somebody's going to choose to escalate a problem in their life from, you know, whether it's a domestic issue or whether it's related to drugs, when they're going to choose to use violence to respond to a problem in their life. And it's important that we rapidly respond to, investigate, and solve those incidents when they happen. And I'm always impressed. I've been impressed as long as I've been around for the rapid work and the aggressive and tireless work that you and your team puts in solving these crimes. Thank you. Doesn't go unnoticed. Right. So we will be back here a week from now. We'll have similar briefing and conversation. Hopefully, we won't be talking about a tornado at that time. So we'll be back at same time, same day, a week from today, and we'll put that information out through social media channels as well as through the local media. So we want to say again, thank you for your time, thank you for your questions, thanks for participating today. Thank you, Chief Duncan. Thank you, Captain Kaiser.
Thank you.